rolling into January. It's crazy to think it's only 2 weeks into 2025, and already we started the year with a bang in Las Vegas in more ways than one. People have already forgotten that a freaking Cybertruck exploded in front of Trump Tower with this iconic image of this flaming truck in front of Trump's building. Only days before the world's largest consumer electronics show in Vegas, which I made my way out there. We got a lot to cover on episode 97, first one of 2025. What's good?
Well, first of all, just for all of our listeners who were affected by the fires in Los Angeles, our hearts go out to you. I grew my family home is less than a quarter mile from Eaton Canyon here in the Los Angeles area, and we all our hearts are with everyone as the process of rebuilding begins, continues, and will for many weeks and months. That's the reason I was not in Las Vegas. I wanted to fly out for a couple days, meet up, and cover the kickoff of the year, but I was required locally to help with everybody. So I'm very fortunate to say that my family, we're good right now, but it was a little harrowing for about a week, and that's why we're delayed coming into this new year. But just hearts go out to everyone, and thank you so much for first responders, for firefighters, for the police department, all the friends who own small businesses who helped out. Big effort, and I'm just really fortunate and feel blessed that I can get back and record with you. So it's good to see you again.
Yeah, absolutely. Hearts go out to all of the families displaced, everyone who is sort of just dealing with that mass loss. I can only imagine, and I'm so thankful that you and your family are safe. And I know the work that you are doing in your own community to help LA rebuild and kind of still dealing with it even now, even on the front line.
Grab a drink. It's time for another episode of Off the Record on the Rocks. Join Michael Toner and Ankarina Lara as we discuss the latest in all things Web3, AI, metaverse, and crypto. Tune out the noise and turn up the signal as we pour ourselves into the future. Better make mine a double.
And that, is the backdrop. Everything that I just stated, from that explosion in Vegas, the big show, the fires happening in Vegas. And that's just the tip of the iceberg when we go back and just look at the last 2 weeks, and everything in my mind now. Here we are recording January 15th. I'm hoping to get this up tomorrow. Everything in my mind now in the context of Monday's inauguration, the second inauguration of Trump coming to DC. DC's already in lockdown mode. They're putting up the fences. You've got flags everywhere. The metro's starting to shut down for, they're doing sweeps through it. And so the city's already prepping for this inauguration. You've got tech billionaires already stating that they're coming. I saw a headline that Musk and Bezos and Zuck are all going to be sitting next to each other. So can't wait to see that picture. Speaking of those pictures, we also had the funeral of former President Jimmy Carter. Talk about another kind of iconic image, this wild image of these former presidents between Clinton and Kamala and Biden and Obama and Trump and Melania sitting there. I mean, what a wild, wild take here. We haven't even mentioned Canadian's Prime Minister Trudeau stepping down. CFTC chairman here in the United States, the CFTC chair stepping down. So we've got big resignations and at the global scale. We've got Elon Musk now. Big other rumor. One big headline to get to today is TikTok. So we're staring down the barrel here of Inauguration Day on Monday. This date of January 19th has been set as the date that they have to figure out where, does TikTok sell to a US-based owner in order to maintain the business here in US? And who emerges? The headline of it looks like old Musk might be in buying contention. I don't even know how to piece all of this apart, but I know that plus the ceasefire deal that just happened today, all of this is interconnected. I mean, are we trading TikTok for hostages? You let me buy, I'll give you more. I mean, it's wild to think what is actually on the negotiating table.
Well, and so just to pick up right where you left off there, that's to me something that for our listeners that we've been talking about now, coming up on 100 episodes. We tried to time the 100th episode for the inauguration. Looks like we'll be at like 98 before the inauguration, but hey, by the end of January, it will be at 100. History will not remember the exactness of that. It'll just be close enough. But I was sort of imagining, like you were saying, those images of Trump sitting next to Obama at the Carter funeral, of this proposed row of seats that will be on the steps that are going to include, and it's not just Bezos and Musk and these, there's going to be, and Zuck, there will be other luminaries that most people might not even recognize, like, Andreessen Horowitz, those people themselves, maybe even some of the folks who have moved from tech into those official government jobs. We might not recognize them unless the TV tells us who they are. But I sort of imagine this. I mean, to talk about putting a bow on starting this new, let's not use the word regime just yet, but this new administration, I imagine this rolling speech where the table has had so many things on it, so many negotiating pieces that have ranged from something as cute and lovely as pandas to something as ugly as licensing or authorizing, Ukraine to use American-made long-range weapons deep into Russia, to sanctions against countries, to lawsuits against American companies. There's so many things that were at play, and I just imagine this rolling speech of, and now to this point, and then just being able to point at someone on the stage, maybe more than 10 feet away, that's going to be that person's remit. And, you want to talk about TikTok? Well, that's going to go to that guy. And the hostages that are being negotiated, well, there's the admiral, there's the 4-star general, it's him. And then just being able to kind of point out all the players and identify the players in a way we've never seen before, and then allow, I think, the US, like you said, to take stuff off the table. Like, what if at the same time TikTok is acquired by Elon Musk? At the same breath, you no longer allow long-range rockets into the US. You change your position with China on semiconductor trade and Apple iPhone building, etc. I feel like we're seeing, and this is it's kind of gross to say it like this, but we're seeing that, like, deal or no deal stage television persona, The Apprentice, you're hired, you're fired, playing out live on the steps of the Capitol. And it took us 12 years to get here, because I think that they would have loved to have done that 12 years ago. But here we are now, and it's like, now we're playing this game called The Government is a TV Show, and here are all the characters, and we're going to just list them all off as you're going to see them, names, smiling, waving for the camera. Talk about a red carpet meets a metaverse meets a real world event. It's such a strange collision, and I'm excited for it. I can't say anything else. I'm very excited for it.
And to put a real fine tip on it, I mean, they're calling Friday night's party the first crypto ball in DC. And
oh my God.
It's, he's billing himself as the first crypto president. So all those billionaires who are playing ball are going to be at the crypto ball in DC Friday night. And they're all talking about Bitcoin and Ethereum and XRP and Solana ETFs. And what happened just in the past 48 hours? Gary Gensler with his swan song going on the morning shows, talking about for 10,000 years we've had gold and now we have Bitcoin. But all those other coins, they need to prove their underlying fundamentals, he said. And he even got called out. He was like, you own Bitcoin, don't you? You own Bitcoin, don't you? And of course, Gensler wouldn't admit it, but I have no doubt, and I think we reported it here on the show, there have been congressmen starting to trickle out that they're buying crypto, that they're buying into these altcoins. And also today, just to put another stamp on it, because I feel like we've been lucky on recording days, Bitcoin breaking the 100K mark again, bouncing back over that 100K. That fifth wave came true from when we chatted yesterday. And what's going to be happening on Monday? Again, everything through this lens of inauguration. Crypto Ball Friday, crazy weekend here in DC. All the power players, all the private jets landing at National and Dulles. Everybody going to be in the nation's capital for Monday. And my guess is we're going to get a hostage deal. You're going to see hostages coming home. You're going to see markets pumping. Everyone's going to have this massive euphoria. What have I been calling for the last year? But everyone is going to be feeling bullish, bullish, bullish as we head into Martin Luther King weekend, as people get back to work. And they're talking about one big bill to rule them all, one big sweeping legislation to get passed that will no doubt on day one have some rules and regulation around crypto, and anything else that he is trying to get passed, they're going to try to ram it through.
This is going to be a huge, beautiful bill, the biggest bill we've ever seen, the biggest crypto inauguration we've ever seen. We're going to hear all those. But, what underlying that to me, just to kind of maybe retrace our steps a few days back into CES is, look, I think smart money knows, I think our listeners know, there is no president, there is no real congressperson who's over the age of, you pick it, 35, 40, who knows really anything about crypto. Now, they may have a thumb drive with crypto that they've been holding and not talking about. Gary Gensler, what's his name? Teddy Cruz, the others, because it's in everyone's better interest. And people would ask, well, why? Why would someone like Gary Gensler talk so badly about crypto and sue so many American innovation companies in crypto? Well, if you look at the other side of it, it's in his better interest if he owns crypto to keep the price low while he can keep accumulating. And then as soon as the genie's out of the bottle, which is about to be on ironically Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday holiday, coinciding exactly with the inauguration on Monday. And it's going to be just taking off and going to keep ripping, because if the administration says we're the crypto administration, well, then it better rip. So to me, it's like, well, wait a second. Who exactly is in the ears of Donald Trump and his staff? We know his kids are, but they're idiots. And all of their programs have been these, NFT scams and this and that. Nothing really of that heavy quality, an actual project. So now, for the first time with a crypto ball, and if Elon Musk is any, bellwether example of, well, if you have money and an innovative idea and you can make it really interesting to the United States, I'm going to send all your satellites to the moon, and then we'll go to Mars. I'm going to set up charging stations for semi-trucks across the entire country. I'm going to help people who can't see or hear with chips in their head see and hear. That all sounds really good for American people. Great. So now, well, what if I'm Jeff Bezos? What if I'm Tim Cook? What if I'm Zuck? What if I'm the head of Solana? I'm the head of XRP. Hey, who are you guys? We're all the guys who have been sued for the last 8 years, and we know everything about crypto. Hey, we'd like to give you some advice, Mr. President. And surprise, surprise, out of 895,000 coins, there are going to be 4 that get a spot ETF. And who are those 4? Well, it's his coin, and Bitcoin. I mean, so I just have a feeling like if you had if we had mounds of cash, if our listeners would donate to Off the Record on the Rocks, just a dump truck of cash, we too could maybe get a seat at the very back of the inauguration lawn and wave and say, we know something about crypto, Mr. Trump. It just seems like you got to have that right, wallet size to kind of get in the door. And then they're going to set all the new regulation and doctrine that's going to it will 100% favor them. So not doubt. Financial advice, but those four tokens that we just described, when you talk about Bitcoin, Ethereum, Doge, Solana, and XRP, as 5 of them, there might not be any else that matter, because only people with those 5 interests are on Capitol Hill right now talking to the president.
Yeah, they're the ones with the access right now. They're the ones driving the narrative in this new movie, this new television show, Trump TV, happening here in Washington, D.C. I mean, I don't even know where to go. There were so many things on what you just said. I wanted to go back to CES a little bit and just thinking about all the technology that's coming forward. There was a lot of talk about AI. You're hearing a lot of talk about AI agents taking jobs. You're hearing from NVIDIA about this sort of wave of AI agents coming. And take that all the way through into the new administration, the efficiencies that they will be looking for, the regulation that they're going to put into these new cryptocurrencies. How is that going to impact the everyday worker? If an agent is able to take over 90% of these repetitive jobs, We haven't talked about open AI. I mean, that's another one that kind of got swept through the rug, but Sam Altman's dealing with his own sexual assault scandal with his sister that is not really breaking through. And frankly, I don't want to talk about it. It just seems disgusting. It seems just, I'm not surprised. I mean, I guess at the end of the day to be hearing that kind of news, but he's also got, I guess, a seat at the table, although I don't know if he's coming.
Well, but that's why I sort of
invited?
brought up CES for that reason, because, ostensibly there's a lot of players in the crypto space and in the technology space who really this year start at CES and then roll the dice on their game board called Trump TV and then move their carom, 3, 4 spots forward. And then they're at inauguration. And then from inauguration, there's going to be another rolling of the dice and then a few stops forward. So
To Davos.
technology
That's the next
to
stop.
Davos.
Yeah.
That's right. When's Davos this year? I forgot about Davos.
Within the next week. Yeah, right after.
So it's right after inauguration. Okay, so there you go. That's the 1, 2, 3 this year was CES, inauguration, Davos. So if those same people, the same way that it used to be, like if we rewound this would be Bill Gates, and this would be Steve Jobs, and this would be the head of, World Bank. This would be those people. But this go around, he's like Sam Altman and AI, probably not present at CES at all, I'm guessing. More like AI discussions from companies that aren't traditional AI companies. So that's kind of its own little FUD cloud in a way, its own little like obfuscation of things, because like Samsung talking about AI or, Omnicom Worldwide talking about AI, that's one thing. But Sam Altman talking about AI, or perhaps the folks at, Gemini, or the folks at, you name the actual AI project, they don't really neatly fit into a traditional consumer electronics show. So there's this whole group of people who I think, unfortunately, are going to be moving, a group of luminaries moving from Vegas to Capitol Hill with their ear, with the president, with their mouth in the president's ear. Sorry, I was trying to be gross for a second, but who don't really themselves know AI. They all know tech and crypto, but now this Web3 world that we've always talked about for our listeners, Web3 and crypto are these huge terms, umbrella terms that cover so many verticals. So you have guys who are interested in making money with cryptocurrency now at a seat at a table, the world's biggest table, and then now likely to just start spouting off about AI because at least half of them have AI projects at their company. So I just feel like there's going to be this challenge of the AI narrative is going to get stolen, but basically by the crypto thugs is my thesis.
Oh yeah, anybody who was in crypto has already pivoted to AI in terms of changing out their LinkedIn profile and what they're out there talking about. I do think that there's a massive overlap and intersection between these two. I think that we've talked about it here on the show, like to read the tea leaves a little bit, but or to make sense out of all the noise. You're going to need an artificial intelligence to make sense of these microtransactions that can happen on chain. And I do think that is really where these technology leaders, the Mark Andreessens, the Peter Thiels, the guys leading these big initiatives, see the opportunity of, okay, you can have millions of microtransactions happening on blockchains as long as you have an AI agent that can kind of make sense of the ledger at the end of the day, and it doesn't need a human overseeing it. I do think it's fascinating. We talk about this cast of characters that's happening. To me, that is exactly right. These names, these businesses, the folks emerging as technology leaders, these new luminaries, everyone who's getting invited to CES, everyone who's getting invited to the crypto ball, everyone who's going to fly from DC to Davos. These are the new cast of characters swirling around Trump and Elon, and the two of them still haven't been decoupled yet. I mean, I'll go back to the way at the top of the show, but that Cybertruck in front of Trump Tower, one of them burnt to a crisp and one of them was still standing tall. I do think that's still my big prediction, is that narrative is only going to last so long. It might take us well into Q2, Q3 through the summertime, but it's only going to last so long. I don't see it lasting past 2024, although I do have to say Elon knows how to play a long game. He's talking about going to Mars. He's talking about, putting satellites into space and controlling that. One character that we haven't talked about yet on the show, although briefly, I guess he's going to be here, is Zuck. And Zuck going on Rogan, spilling the tea about the Biden administration, just tearing it down. I mean, unbelievable for him. The full transformation of Mark Zuckerberg is now complete. And he's come out and said, we don't need to be censoring the truth. He's now going back to kind of the community notes. You saw Twitter and Linda, the CEO of Twitter, or X now, like really praising Zuck for taking this stance, because that is what X has been doing for a while with community notes and allowing just the everyday users to police the use of free speech on their platform. I mean, it's wild to think Zuckerberg out there just bashing really Biden and the policies and telling the truth, I guess, at the end of the day of, they were trying to censor news and information, and they would call up Facebook and call up Zuckerberg and say, squash it. And now he's calling it out.
There was a time, maybe Zuckerberg finally has gone through puberty. I mean, maybe he's finally become a man on some level, right? Because you remember the pictures. There's the pasty, wide-eyed kid on Capitol Hill. Again, we joke about the senator from the Carolinas. Will you please describe to me the differences between a poke and a like? Like saying that out loud and having that kid sweaty, pasty white. He doesn't blink. He doesn't really say anything. He just sits there and makes notes. And then at some point, there was this transformation where he's like, you know what? I'm not that sweaty, pasty pushover. He starts training, doing like weird MMA, kettlebells in his compound. Next thing you know, he's doing judo with these private Brazilian trainers. Then he's threatening Elon and wanting to take him to the iron cage and like show everybody, look, no, I'm a real man. I'm not just that pasty kid who smiles and goes in front of Congress and gets whipped around. And then when you start to see, Reddit, I'm going to throw Reddit out there as something that we probably haven't talked about in a long time because there hasn't been much to talk about in a long time. But Reddit this week also just launched one of its largest platform enhancements, I want to say, in 3 to 4 years. For those people who don't use Reddit, think of it as like, in the old days, a giant set of forums, right? Message boards that have topics that are commented on and kind of treed and spider down, but are ultimately community moderated, right? It's really a community ledger, just to start throwing some new words around. So Reddit as a community ledger, why is that important? Well, they launched finally an advanced search tool to actually drill deep into the Reddit, subreddits, but it was before you couldn't. You actually had to do the work falling down the rabbit hole. Why is that interesting? Well, that's exactly what Zuck now wants Facebook to be, because one day he woke up and saw that on the news and then searched and said, oh shit, Reddit is the 7th largest trafficked website in the world. They're in the top 10, and they're only going to go up further and further, because if everyone thinks that Facebook content is censored, if everyone thinks that half of my friends on Instagram are AI bots, then how am I going to know the truth? I'll go down to my subreddit and I'll figure it out. And it's not censored because the community in the geolocated area is talking about it. So I think there's now these new pressures that Zuck feels emboldened to finally come out. And again, there's no more Biden, so he doesn't have to worry. But yeah, the stuff that he was throwing and just saying straight away, like what seems almost like violations of national security, or somehow almost seems like a seditionist behavior, saying things that the Biden administration told him in confidence on the phone while the president still sits. Talk about the cojones on his chones.
He's not scared. He's not scared. And that also means he's got probably feeling good going into Monday. Again, everything through the lens of Monday inauguration, right? He wouldn't go on Rogan a week before inauguration, again, potentially spilling national security secrets on a podcast if he didn't feel comfortable sharing it. And it's a masterclass. I mean, the media relations training, the chillness. I mean, talk about chill guy as a meme. The chillness that he was able to portray in his facial expressions while describing these nuanced things, the words that he was choosing. I wish I could go back and look at the transcript, because I was reading in between the words to pick out exactly those things you're keying in on, of like, oh shit, he's talking about like, COVID related stuff and like that stuff that I could go back in the news and be like, that's not what they told us.
Yeah.
I can check the receipts, and he's choosing his words so carefully, and he was kind of saying it casually, like, yeah, we're not going to do that anymore. It was really hard for those human moderators, and it was not good for us, and we couldn't really keep up with it. Yeah, no shit, because it was probably just the barrage of violence and vitriol and hate. And now you don't have to deal with that shit anymore. I mean, that's at the end of the day, he can get rid of that whole team of people, because the algorithm to do that is still there. And we'll just rely on the algorithm of the community. We'll just let the actual bots, the human bots, go do the drudgery work.
Yeah, and that again, what you're just describing is like there is an awakening that's happening, and the awakening, it starts slowly, and then suddenly it's all at once. But as soon as the first people stand up and say, "You can't censor me on this platform," and then what happened? Well, then the entire platform imploded and was acquired by an insane billionaire. When way previous to that, talking about Twitter and Musk, way previous to that, there was this problem with free speech in newspaper publications and the cratering of journalism. If you recall, goes back now about 10 years. And then who was the eccentric billionaire who, quote, saved the day for free speech in that example? Well, it was Jeff Bezos, and he bought up all these big newspapers and these outlets. So there's a long tradition of billionaires steering into media and distribution of information. It's just that when you think of Jeff Bezos and acquiring the Washington Post plus a plurality of local newspapers, it doesn't seem overtly evil. But when you think of Elon Musk basically deep sixing and acquiring Twitter and making all the humans who used to censor all of the posts, humans, a handful of people, I know some of them personally, would never say their names right now, but we're talking a team that started out with less than 8 people who are censoring content on Twitter based on their list of rules of, there's violence, inciting violence. We've all gone through this before. But 8 humans, and hey, they all happen to live in San Francisco. And I know some of them, and they all think alike. Is that a good thing? Well, maybe if you're trying to make Twitter be the way that internet people in the Silicon Valley communicate, which is what it started as, but as a global platform, that's not how you have the Arab Spring come out of it. Why was the Arab Spring not censored? Like, they hadn't gotten there yet, right? That was too early. So somehow the acquisition of Musk, or the acquisition of Twitter by Musk, and then taking that and creating X, it does seem really evil. Not unlike, but Bezos doesn't. Like, there's these moves that are the same moves. I'm acquiring a platform to disseminate information. I have either a silent or a very vocal opinion about what I'm doing, and then people just, it's like polarizing. You just are either, I am totally against this person, or I actually embrace this person. There is no middle ground. It's everything they do sucks. There's not one product or idea they have that could be possibly right if I think that you're the wrong person. And now I feel like you're going to see the true colors of Zuck, the true colors of Bezos, the true colors of all of the true thoughts of all these people who are living in a group that is infinitesimally small, but unimaginably powerful. And there's not anyone who is listening to this podcast, neither of the two of us, who have any idea what it's like to be a billionaire, and what it's like to have to answer questions in front of Congress or to buy tech companies. And they are going to start to create this, I think, this weird group think that could become like the echo chamber I had just described with the Twitter censoring. And that's the danger. The echo chamber in Washington changing crypto and changing AI in this new weird American, like, I don't know how to describe it. It's like the Borg is being assembled. The Borg.
And it does feel like that Borg and this awakening is anti-woke, right? The dismantling of these DEI programs, and now you've got Zuck out there talking about more masculine energy, and literally him representing that boosted testosterone, doing judo, wanting to fight people in the street, spitting the truth, going on Rogan. He might as well have been sitting back, drinking a whiskey and smoking a stogie, right? But that mentality now of the cast of characters, we have not named a single woman.
Mm-hmm. Mm. That's heavy, man. That's true. Not
Not
one. And all
one.
the ones are going out. They're already going out. Grasping. Loomis, Warren. What happened to Sandberg?
I
Wasn't
mean,
she like Zuck's pal? What's she up to?
I did see some news that Michelle Obama not attending the inauguration on Monday, and her office declined to explain why. I found that headline really fascinating. Of course,
Another.
why would
I
why
mean, why would she not come?
well, because she's maybe the only woman who can say no. I'm not going to play this new game with this new cast of characters. But it is kind of crazy to me, like everyone kind of assuming these new, or as you're saying, maybe they're true colors. To me, it still feels like they're wearing a new costume. That they're changing scenes. The
They're
scene,
They're convenient colors. They're scene change. Their next
yeah,
act.
and it's still scary. I mean, it's still crazy to think that starting Monday, you know, what is going to happen? What are these day one decrees going to be? What is the stock market going to do? What are jobs and companies? And if jobs start coming back and start really pushing and hiring, I think you're going to see, uh, the Great Resignation 2.0. I think you're going to see a lot of what we saw in COVID, where people were like, fuck this. I don't want to work for the man anymore. I want to work for a company that does what I want to do. I think you're going to see that again because people will still have that bullish sentiment. They'll be like, oh, yeah, things are good right now. Companies are hiring. I'm going to jump over here. I'm going to go over here. We already saw this with Kate, the CMO of Coinbase,
Caitlin. Oh, Kate. Yes.
jumping over to OpenAI. There's one woman that we can name, a smaller character in the play, but she left Coinbase now over at OpenAI. I think you're going to see some of those bigger high level moves. But
Yep.
also I think even in the, sort of the rank and file around corporate America, I think that there's a lot of angst building. I think there's a lot of excitement, good or bad, no matter which side of the political spectrum you fall on. I think there's a lot of excitement of people feeling this energy. It's scary energy and people are scared. But what happens in that fear, uncertainty, and doubt, there is opportunity. And I think that opportunity is going to start to show itself as we get past next Monday. The other one you mentioned, Loomis. I sent you the tweet the other day.
Yeah.
And no doubt it was absolutely related to the wildfires in LA, the scams going on with crypto, people either requesting or putting up ads to donate in crypto, scan this QR code.
Literally, it's that easy. It's a single image of a QR code and then a quote from your local politician and like a picture of a house burned down. It is so easy to scam people with crypto, and it's awful. That was the message this morning from the live mayoral conference in Los Angeles. It was like they were
Yeah.
very specific. They were calling out crypto in the mayor's emergency response conference. Like that's how deep it's now in the threads of our society, whether we like it or not.
Yeah, and so Cynthia Loomis tweeting out, like basically do your own research, DYOR, like taking that DGen hashtag to the Capitol Hill tweet there, and I think one of her follow-up tweets said like Monday the work begins, and it was basically her insinuating that the work on the Bitcoin strategic reserve begins. And I believe it's already begun. I think that same cast of characters that were in Las Vegas that are landing here in DC and that are going to make their way to Davos, they've already got the plan. They've already stopped by Michael Saylor's house there and they know what the price point's going to be and what the, like how long, over what period of time you make those purchases, at what price points you can make those purchases. And no doubt that a Bitcoin strategic reserve is happening some point, and maybe we'll find out on Monday. I can't wait to think about all the predictions we have made about Bitcoin regulation, about DAOs and company regulation and issuing of tokens and fractionalized ownership and the tokenization of real world assets. All of these things that we've talked about that have been in this gray space for years now, all of a sudden make their way into the mainstream. and people feel like, oh, maybe I should buy some Bitcoin now. Oh, it went back up over 100. Okay, all right, feels legit now. Trump says it's okay. Elon says it's okay. Maybe I should get some. Uh, that's all it takes. You
Yeah,
add that
yeah.
plus a
That,
strategic reserve.
yeah, and the strategic reserve is something too that we as we've been watching these moves have been talking about what happens with regulation around the world as well. We haven't talked too much recently about the UK, about Asia, and the things that they're doing, but we know now spot ETFs are being made available in Hong Kong. We know that the European Union wants to rewrite the rules they wrote because it was too soon. Like they did this 2 years ago, if you recall, and they didn't cover nearly half the things they should have. We already know El Salvador has fully embraced it as national currency. There is going to then be, I think, a cascade of announcements. And if the strategic Bitcoin reserve is a one, of course, huge one with the US, then how many other countries quickly follow? We've already heard countries who are already using it. They haven't used the term strategic reserve, but have allowed it to be used as currency in certain sanctioned countries like Brazil. As soon as that happens, and then, well, what's the next country? There's another 107 countries besides El Salvador who could declare their official currency Bitcoin. If you're in a country where has been no path out of inflation, let's just use an example of a country that's actually really well known, but has suffered some of the worst inflation swings, is Argentina. What if Argentina just said, we're making Bitcoin our national currency, and now we're not subject to the fluctuations of a local currency being affected by the pressures of a global market of currencies? We are now the global currency. And you can imagine these leapfrog moments, right? There are leapfrog moments that have happened in South America before. Some people don't know this who are younger than me. One of them in Brazil was that Brazil never did dial-up modems, because they never had the infrastructure to have phones. So they basically just didn't have internet, and then had broadband. Like there's some moments in time where, didn't have a decent, financial system, didn't have a decent financial system. We have Bitcoin. Like maybe there is these giant skips. And as soon as a couple of sovereign nations pile on, well, now you can see how the United States owning the maximum amount of Bitcoin is critically important.
Yep.
And the United States then becoming the biggest miner and acquirer. Well, so sorry, Mr. Toner and Mr. Lara, you guys might as well just sit back and buy your ETFs because they've already bought all of the Bitcoin. Yes, but we're going to discover some in 10 years, but they're discovering it every day at the rate that we can't keep up with, because these little ant mining machines in my basement are on fire, working 3 hours. It's a bad one, but working like around the clock. They're working around the clock, and they're smoldering because of that. And as a result, they cannot compete with the United States government. So I think that right there is that announcement there kicks off a cascade of global announcements that will then reinforce the direction that the U.S. has. In the same way the U.S. has taken the lead in so many things, from sports to the way we operate our military to whatever. Now suddenly it's like, oh, everyone's back on sides with the United States and our new financial model. The financial model called controlling a wild algorithm called Bitcoin.
And look,
it's a TV show. It's a TV show.
It is a TV show, and if you had bought Bitcoin 2 days ago when Jamie Dimon took the airways and said Bitcoin had no intrinsic value, you would already be up 20%. That to me was such a weird one. Like, he has flip-flopped back and forth when it is convenient for him to artificially deflate the price. He comes out and says Bitcoin sucks. Price tanks down to 89. 2 days later, it rips again. And in my mind, everybody is trying to hold that price point right here at this 100K level right until Monday. I'll leave it at final thoughts, but I can't wait. We're going to have to do it again next week. Maybe we'll do a Tuesday, Wednesday recording so that we get through inauguration, and then let's see.
Or get through inauguration, record right after it, and then record one more time on Tuesday. We'll have to see for sure. But a last thought is, because we've just talked about really the biggest of the biggest headlines for all our listeners, there are so many stories that we had on our list that we couldn't get to today because it would go too long. And a couple of the stories are the dirty ones that these same cast of characters out of one side of their mouth, let's just use Zuck as the example because I know we're running long. Out of one side of his mouth, it's I'm the man now. I got my judo gi on. I'm about to go and tell people what to do again. We're gonna do it this way. And I'm gonna be at the inauguration, and like there's this whole thing. I'm gonna go on Rogan. I'm gonna spill those secrets. I'm gonna go nut, and all people hear is that. But then what did he do yesterday? Just announced a 5% layoff across Meta. And what were all the comments that flowed from that post? Oh, sure, all the H-1Bs are going to be gone. Oh, sure, like all these political things. And in my mind, I'm like, no, he's going to clear out 20% by the end of this year, because he's going to replace critical employees with AI prompters. And no one's going to know about it because all they were doing was watching Zuck go to Capitol Hill, and they forgot that he at the same time was literally firing close to 10,000 people. That's the stories that get buried. And that's why we have to always look a little bit underneath, because every one of these guys has another thing going, and they're using these big, outrageous claim stories to cover up all the stuff that actually affects real people. So my heart goes out to Meta as well.
Yeah,
the Meta employees.
They're making movie magic and obfuscating the narrative and a little misdirection, which is no
Catch
doubt
me if you can.
What is happening. All right, I can't wait. We'll do it again next
week.
Talk
to you soon, man.
That's all the time we have for this episode of Off the Record on the Rocks. Join us next week for more news and all things Web3. Check, please.